Now the next step is we have to create the global store. To create the global store, first of all, I am going to create a folder named store. You can name it whatever you want to. This is a general practice that we name the global store folder as store. And inside this, at the moment, I am creating a file called store.js. So here I will be creating the global store. So now to create the global store, I will use create store method of Redux. This is how we generally write the create store. This method creates the global Redux store. It returns the store object, that is the global state. Like here in this statement, the constant store will contain the created global store. As you also see, it takes one argument. It is just the name of a function which will act as a reducer. Remember, a reducer function becomes an actual reducer when you pass it as an argument inside the create store method. Till that time, it's just a normal function. But the moment you pass that function as an argument to create store, it will be called automatically whenever there is a store creation or there is a dispatch of action. So this also means that we will have to create the reducer function first and then we will pass it to the create store method as an argument. Let's do this. First of all, I am going to say const reducer. Now, in the previous section, I mentioned about two parameters passed to the reducer. The first is state and the second is action. State basically contains the initial state, and then later on, whatever changes of the state you do inside the reducer, that you have to return at the end. So this function will always return the latest state. Here, at the moment, we don't have anything inside the state. You may assign initially, let's say, an object or an array. This is the ES6 syntax to have the initial value for the function parameter. So state will have initial value. We can define the initial value here. I can say const, for example, I want to name initial data. And here, first thing is that I will have the products array. We will have the cart array. And we will also have the total. So there are three different values you see here in the init data. And this I can assign here. I can say init data here. So this will be the initial value. At the same time, I can update this products data with this data itself. Let me do that. I'll copy. I'm not removing the data at the moment and I will paste inside this products array. So at least now we have one set of data. And this actually will be the case because the cart data is anyway generated on some event. Now next thing is that we have to create the store. So to create the store, I will say const store is equal to create store. Now the moment I use this create store, that means I need to import it. And this is how you can import, right? So create store and the function which I have to pass is the reducer. So now we are done with the store creation. We have used the create store method. We have created the reducer function. As we move on, you will have absolute clear idea about how the reducer works with various events. Now the last thing I would do is I'm going to export store object from this file. So we are done with the global store creation. The next step is we have to provide this global store to the application components, and that's going to be our next chapter. Let's also talk about few relative questions now. So there can be a question how to create a global store or explain the usage of Redux create store method. So basically, to create the global store, we use the create store method, which takes the reducer as an argument. That's a function. And also, whenever you create the reducer, you do make sure that there are always two parameters returned, the state and the action. Action receives the value, that is the object literal, from dispatch. And here you see the syntax. The store itself is the global store created. When you import the create store method, do remember you do not import it from the React Redux, because the React Redux is just there to connect the component and the global store. So create store belongs to the Redux package. So you import it and you use the create store method with the reducer function to create the global store.